In today's video, I am making some DIY Halloween home decor. Some of these projects are brand new and some of them are favorites from previous Halloween videos. So without further ado, my name is Misty. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Designs. Now let's get crafting. For this project, I'm starting off with one of the jumbo Christmas ornaments from Dollar Tree, and what I'm going to do is just take my hot knife and remove that part that's hanging out from the hanger. You just take the hanger off and then you can cut this part off. You could even heat up a normal knife if you need to. It's pretty quick and easy. Really, this entire project is quick and easy, which I absolutely love. Now that I have that plastic part cut off, I'm going to be taking one of these Dollar Tree LED lights. They come with clear crystals. They're pretty cool and they can go in water. But what I'm going to do is try and take this and make sure I make the hole in the ornament the same size so that I'm able to at least push the light up inside. And I don't want it to go all the way inside. I want it to kind of sit flush with the bottom of the ornament, but you can still twist the bottom of the light because that's how you turn it on and off. For now, I'm going to set the little light aside and fill the inside of the Christmas ornament with some Dollar Tree fake spiderweb, faux spider webbing. You can even use like fluff if you would like to. That would work as well, or even the insides of a pillow as long as it's white. You want to just kind of fluff it out so that it's not really dense. You'll see me kind of taking the pieces and really pulling them apart so that you can see through them a little bit more. And as I'm pushing that spider web inside, I'm also feeding in some green fairy lights from Amazon. I wanted multicolor lights, but I could not find any in time. So I made do with the green lights, which was perfectly fine because the light from Dollar Tree that I'm putting in the bottom, that light actually glows multicolor. It changes colors, as you could probably see. So it turned out so neat. To get my lights and the spider webbing to move around where I wanted it, I just used my scissors. You can use the end of a paintbrush, but that will help you to get everything in place. Of course, my birds are going to go crazy right now. Now that it is nice and full, I'm going to hold the wire to the fairy lights over to the over to the side, and then I'm going to just take that little light from Dollar Tree, push it into the hole. Again, you want to make sure that it is hanging out a little bit. I'm so sorry, you guys. Make sure that little light is hanging out so that you can twist it on and off. Next, I picked up this really nice black candle holder from Dollar Tree. It's actually quite large, and it's normally supposed to go one direction, but for this project, we're going to use it upside down. And all I'm going to do is take the orb, place it right on there with the lights on the inside. And you guys, that was it. I am going to take a little bit of ribbon that I got off a different project and just tie it in a bow up at the top. Here's the ribbon, and here's how this project turned out. For this project, I'm using one of these clear vases from Dollar Tree. It can be any shape as long as it's clear. You just want to make sure you're able to see through it. So next, you're going to be taking one of these Dollar Tree hats. If you're doing this for Halloween, I suggest grabbing the black one. I have made this before for just normal household decorations where I used the tan hat, and it was amazing. And I believe it was Dee from She's So Crafty. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think she was the first one to actually take these sun hats and turn it into this vase. So big props to her because the Halloween version is so cool. To get the Dollar Tree sun hat to unravel, all you have to do is find the little plastic tie string thing, you'll definitely see it. It's super easy to see. All you have to do is snip that. That is holding this whole hat together, and as you pull, it will just fall right apart. Before I started hot gluing it to my vase, I wanted to just give it a little snip on the end so that it had a nice clean cut. And then all I'm going to do is add a little bit of hot glue to start it off. And then you're going to wrap it all the way around the vase, starting at the very bottom. And once you get to the starting point on the back, you want to stop there, cut that, and then you're going to go up in the same exact spot where you started the previous like wrap around, and you're going to start there. You could do a continuous wrap where you glue it on and you just wrap and add a little hot glue here and there and just keep going and not cut it at all. However, I decided to cut it just so that each time that I wrapped it around, the material was nice and straight, it wasn't crooked, and just making sure that you start and stop at the same point will allow for you to have a really nice front to your project and no spots where you had to start and or stop and start over. Along with starting and stopping at the same point, I also overlapped them just a very teeny tiny bit each time I added a new one going around so that there's not any areas where you can see between them. I added those strips going all the way up to the very top of the vase until it was completely covered. Now at this point and the vase is completely covered, you might have quite a bit of hot glue strands or just little bits of hot glue here and there poking out. All you have to do is rub it a little bit forcefully. Most of it will come off, and any spots that don't, just use your heat gun or even your hair blow dryer on a nice high setting, and those hot glue pieces will completely disappear. Once those are all gone, here comes the magic, and all you have to do is add in some green or orange, maybe purple fairy lights, add in some spooky florals, and this is done. For this project, I picked up 2 of these Halloween flour sack towels from Dollar Tree. I love the fact that there's a print on one side and something different, or at least something the same, but not upside down on the other side. So what I'm going to do is take these and I'm just going to fold them perfectly in half, or at least try to. And then I am going to just simply flip up the edge, add a little bit of hot glue down on the corner, and you want to start on the corners, or at least I like to, so that once you work your way up and along the sides, you're going to end up basically getting it perfectly in half. I don't know why, but for me, whenever I start at the center point and work my way towards the corners, the ends don't always meet up. So I just figured starting on those ends or corners make it a little bit easier. Now, by all means, just because I'm hot gluing this does not mean you guys have to. You can sew it, you can use the iron adhesive tape. I mean, you can do this however you would like to. I personally just love making these because the dollar stores come out with so many different designs. Really, you guys could have different throw pillows for every day of the week. It's absolutely crazy how quick and easy these are to make. And mine are actually going to be for outside on my porch, so I'm going to be stuffing them with something a little bit different. The only thing that you want to be cautious about is making sure that when you're sewing it or hot gluing it together, you leave a hole at the bottom or at least on one of the sides so that you can stuff it. Do not glue it shut all the way around. That's why I personally just like going up the sides and then down a little bit into the center. So like I said, I'm going to be using something a little bit different to stuff my pillows, and I am using some plastic bags from Dollar Tree, Walmart, anywhere. I have tons of them, and I just wanted to put them to use. And they are perfect to hold up in the weather. And you guys, they're outdoor pillows. They're just for decorations. It's not that serious. So I did what I wanted to do. You guys fill yours however you would like. Once you have them nice and fluffed up, all you have to do is add some hot glue or sew up that hole that we left open to fill it. And you guys, these are so quick and easy to make. I mean, we're talking maybe 5 minutes on the both of them. And now I have some cute little Halloween decorative pillows. And really quickly, I wanted to show you guys that I made 2 larger pillows for the same price that I paid for this single small pillow. And I am just so obsessed with how these turned out. For this DIY, I'm using one of these folding lanterns from Dollar Tree. They're actually pretty neat. They are a really nice size as well, and definitely something fun that the kids could do. They are super easy to put together. They just have these little tabs, and you just stick the tops together, and boom, you have a cute lantern. However, for this DIY, you will need to cut this lantern apart, and all you will need is one of the pieces with this haunted house on it. You could save the other pieces for another really neat DIY. Now, taking the side with the haunted house on it, I do also cut off that frame, and then I take my scissors and I get in there and I get a lot closer to that haunted house. It doesn't have to be super close and right up on it, but you do want to get rid of a lot of that shiny plastic. If you are unable to find these lanterns, you could also use window clings. Dollar Tree has 2 different sizes of these cloches. This is the larger of the 2 sizes, and I want to add the haunted house to the inside of this cloche. And to do that, I'm going to add a little bit of Mod Podge down at the bottom of the haunted house, and also adding a little bit up at the top on the peaks of the haunted house. I don't want to add a whole bunch of Mod Podge or Mod Podge even covering the entire thing, just in case it wasn't going to be as transparent, but this way it worked out absolutely perfect. And now I just take the haunted house, place it up inside the cloche, and place it down with my fingers. Once the haunted house is glued on, you will want to set this aside until the Mod Podge completely dries. Now, at first, I was going to use the tea light that came with the lantern from Dollar Tree, but as I was adding the floral moss, I did realize it is a multi-color tea light, and I personally prefer just the normal white light tea light, so I did switch that out, and then I did want to paint the tea light black down at the bottom so that it kind of blends in with the bottom of our cloche a little bit better. To make this a little bit more creepy, I also used some spider webs that I got from Mark's for 89 cents. You could use Dollar Tree spider webs if you would like, but I just kind of fluffed it out and pulled it out so that it wasn't so, I guess, dense and thick, and you can kind of see that light shining through it a little bit more. And once I had enough down inside the cloche, I did go ahead and add a few spiders as well. Once you have whatever creepy, crawly, spooky, scary stuff you would like to put inside your cloche, all you have to do is just place that lid right back on, and you could leave it just like this. But of course, you guys know me and I have to go a few steps further. So Dollar Tree has metal ribbon, and this is my favorite style out of the few styles that they carry. And this is the last bit that I had left, and it fit perfect going around this cloche. So it just must have been meant to be. So I wrapped it around and glued it down into place. And then I take my black chalk paint and I do go ahead and paint that metal ribbon with the black chalk paint. Once the metal ribbon was painted, to elevate this cloche, I'm using one of these glass candle holders from Dollar Tree. I also painted it black as well. And then you're just going to add some hot glue up at the top of the candlestick holder and place it onto the bottom of your cloche. And once you have glued the candlestick to the bottom of your cloche, I did go ahead and add a few little extra teeny tiny spiders, but here's how this DIY turned out. For this project, I'm taking one of the Dollar Tree foam boards and I made a little mark in the center at the center point up here at the top, well, which is going to be the top. And I have this roller yardstick thingy here that it actually bends and moves so that you can shape it however you would like to. So what I'm doing is, again, I made a mark up at the top for whatever reason. My camera did not record that, but just put that measuring tape up there, mark the very center, and then from the sides, all I'm doing is going down to the point where I would like the curve to start because I'm making I believe it's called a cathedral window. However, it's going to be kind of a spooky Halloween cathedral window. And I'm just creating the curve that is going to go to a point up at that top center point where I marked it. You guys, I have no idea why I used a pencil. I wasn't even thinking like, oh wait, they're probably going to need to see the lines. But as I cut it off, you'll see exactly what I mean. Cutting foam board is really super easy. I personally like using a hot knife. I feel like it just makes it easier. But using a super new sharp X-Acto knife or box knife is a very smooth cut as well. And it might even be smoother than the hot knife, to be honest. I just couldn't find my new X-Acto knife, so this was what I used. So what I'm doing is just going along that pencil line and cutting off the excess on those two corners. And now you can see what I mean by when I was taking that bending ruler and just making it go in a curve but to a point up at the top. To get those cut edges a little bit smoother, I did go ahead and just take my zip sander and sand off those edges. I do want to apologize for the angle. This was a little bit difficult. I had to get down on the ground and actually do this because the foam board is so large. It was not going to fit on my desk. So we are sitting on the floor working on a craft. You guys, I am not going to lie to you. This step was just kind of me being a little bit lazy. You could definitely use a ruler or a tape measure to make some squares. I had this canvas from Dollar Tree and it was the perfect size square that I wanted. And I was not trying to use a ruler or anything like that to make these lines. So I just took just the frame of the canvas. I ripped all the actual canvas off, placed it down. I am going to measure about an inch from the edge, but since I am tracing the inside of the square, the line is actually going to be about an inch and a half from the edge. And I mean, come on, can you see what I'm saying here? Like, this is so much easier to just trace out than to actually measure out the same exact squares perfectly. Now, just like I did with the top of the cathedral window, I'm just taking my hot knife and I'm going to cut out those squares. I do end up doing 4 of these squares total. I just didn't want you guys to have to watch all of that. I'm going to just go pretty fast through those, but you are going to cut these 2 out, and then all I do is take that canvas, make 2 more squares about the same distance. I try and make sure I didn't measure very well, you guys, okay? You guys know I'm an eyeballer, right? We know that. We're aware of that by now. Like, I'm actually quite surprised I'm using the ruler as much as I am, because normally I'm just an eyeballer. But anyways, you guys, so actually I totally forgot. I did not take that canvas. I actually used the square that I cut out from one of those previous squares. Since it was already that same size, I did just sand it down so it was smooth. And then I lay that square down again about the same distance as the other 2 first ones, just above those. And I'm going to trace out those 2 squares and cut them out just like the previous 2. I do also take my zip sander and sand the inside of those squares after I cut them. For the top portion of my cathedral window, because I don't think I said it right the last time, I'm just going to take my Cricut mat so that I can create a straight line going from one corner of those squares to the other. And I went about 1.5 inches, 2 inches above the squares. And then I'm going to take my little bendy ruler thing here and create that curve going up to the center point, just like we did in the very beginning. And you want to try and make sure that you keep the same width on either side. And again, you guys, I do apologize for not using my brain and using like a marker or something like that instead of pencil so that you guys could actually see what I was doing. Just like I did with the squares, I went ahead and cut out that portion as well. And now you can see what I mean by how you wanted to kind of keep that top area where it goes from the curve into the point the same width on either side. I wanted to add a little bit more details to this cathedral window, and Dollar Tree has so many different stickers that have some cool designs on them where you could place them onto your project, and it will definitely give it some really cool details. I love these ones that have like this cool corner edge piece. And I'm also going to take a resin piece that I made a while back, and I'm going to glue it to the very top point of our cathedral window. I thought once I have this entire piece painted, it is really going to give all of the corners and just the whole piece a lot more detail. Once I have my accent pieces glued on, I'm just going to take some black acrylic matte paint, and I'm going to paint this entire cathedral window, making sure I even get all the way around the outside edges as well as the inside edges on all of the squares and the other portions that I cut out. I accidentally knocked off my top piece, so I did have to glue that back on. Once my black paint is mostly dry, I'm going to take a paintbrush that normally you would throw away. It's got dried up paint, so it is super hard, but that is exactly what I want because it's not going to give me this perfect look. And what I'm going to do is just dip the very tip of the paintbrush, excuse me, into my white chalk paint. And then I'm just going to start taking my paintbrush, and you want to make sure that you stay in the same direction at all times. So as you're painting this on, you do not see me going in any other direction but pretty much up and down. And you're going to just keep doing this, keep overlapping it until you get the coverage that you like. Once mine got to this point, I liked the look of it, but I did not like that really big blank space up in the top of the cathedral window. So I decided to grab another piece of the foam board from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to draw out a shape kind of like a V. You'll be able to see a little bit better here in just a second. Again, I apologize for that. I think my thinking was, well, if I use a pencil, then I'm not going to have a bunch of crazy lines that I'll have to paint over. But you guys, I painted it black anyway. So the brain was just not braining today, and I am so sorry. So anyways, I drew out this V shape and then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out just like I did all the rest of the pieces with my hot knife. And once it is cut out, I do sand it just like all the rest of it. And just a little trick, if you have a hard time with the paper on here, you can just take one side off and then just paint the side that you removed the paper, and you won't get any of those crazy wrinkles or bubbles when you paint it. Speaking of painting, I figured you guys didn't need to watch me paint that. I did paint it just like I did the rest of the cathedral window, black, and then with the white distressing over top. And to attach this, all I'm going to do is add a few craft sticks down at the bottom onto the back of it, adding some hot glue onto the front of the craft sticks, and then just placing it right up here at the top, making sure that it is nice and straight and even. When I cut this V shape, I did make sure to leave those ends a little bit longer than what I needed, just because I wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be too short. All I have to do is trim off the excess, and then just like I just did, all I'm going to do is take a craft stick and glue that right to the back, making sure that these pieces are now all attached together. Once I have those two ends glued down, I'm going to set this cathedral window aside to work on the second part of this project. I wanted to create a wreath for my cathedral window, and these bat stick branch creepy wreaths are super popular. However, they are beyond expensive, especially if they come with a cathedral window. You can buy the wreath with the cathedral window, but you are going to pay a lot. So what I decided to do is I actually bought this bat wreath last year from Family Dollar. I believe it was only like $5. And it just was so sparse that I wanted to fill it in a little bit better. So what I did is I grabbed these Dollar Tree spooky black glittery branches, and I am just going to cut each individual wire off, or branch off, I should say, with my wire cutters. And as I go around on here, and by the way, I will have these wire cutters linked. They are phenomenal. I can cut every single wire in just one snip instead of having to cut individually. Like, if you're a crafter, you know that's a big deal, okay? So I got you, and I will have these linked down below in the description or in products. So all I'm going to do is, you guys, again, super simple project. You're just going to start adding hot glue to the end of that branch, and you're just going to start putting it into that wreath wherever you feel it needs a little bit more fullness. So all I'm going to do is just keep adding them into those branches that are already on the wreath. And I personally think that this made this project and this wreath so much better, look so much more expensive, and so much higher end. It just, for a few bucks, you really can take something and create something that definitely looks a lot more expensive than what you would think. I do also bend the branches a little bit just so they already have the same flow going on, and you're just going to repeat this going all the way around until you have the fullness that you like. As you can see, it's already starting to look so much better on this side compared to where I haven't placed the extra picks. And once you have your entire wreath filled out, all you have to do is hang up your cathedral window, place the wreath on, and this project is done. This DIY is definitely my favorite Halloween DIY of all time. Dollar Tree carries these casket-shaped signs. I went ahead and removed the hanger, and they are reversible, so it does not matter what side you use. And you are going to need two longer signs from Dollar Tree. It does not have to be these exact signs. I know I have 3 here, but I did only end up using 2. To create the sides to the casket, I hold up one of these longer Dollar Tree signs and I just use my pen and start marking it down the areas where I know I need to measure and cut. I used my utility knife to just score the wood a few times and then I bend it back and forth and it just snaps right off. And I do take my zip sander and sand it down so it is nice and smooth. This one sign piece is going to be both of the longer sides to our casket, so I mark it at its halfway point, which is about 3 inches, and then I draw a line down the center so I know where to take my utility knife, score it, bend it back and forth, and break it apart. And once again, I do sand it down to make sure it is nice and smooth. If you do not have any of the long signs from Dollar Tree, you definitely can make this from the Dollar Tree foam board as well. Once we have those longer sides done, we need to make the smaller sides for up closer to the top of the casket. So I just place the longer side on that we just made for reference. I hold it up and then take the second long Dollar Tree sign, place it up against that side and mark where I need to cut it. Once I had that piece cut, again, I sand it so it is nice and smooth. Then I take the longer side piece to our casket that we already have cut and finished, and I'm just going to hold it up because it is the size that we need. I mark it down and then I use my utility knife to cut those 2 pieces in half. And then once we do that, we have our 2 smaller top side pieces to our casket. So that means we have the 2 longer side pieces to the casket as well as those 2 top shorter side pieces to the casket. That means all we have left is the top and the bottom, and the top and the bottom I'm going to make the same length, and that is the length of the top here. So I am going to again take my piece of that long board sign, whatever you want to call it, from Dollar Tree, and I measure how long that piece is up at the top. Then I just take my ruler and mark where I need to cut it. Again, you always want to measure twice and cut once. And like I said, this is going to be the top and the bottom piece to our casket. So I mark it in the center, which again is about 3 inches. And then I am going to cut that piece in half. So once again, we have our top and our bottom. I made the bottom of my casket the same size as the top piece of the casket, just so that it had a little bit more hanging over on the sides, because the bottom of the casket is obviously thinner than the top of the casket, and with that piece, the casket will stand up very, very well. You'll see what I mean here in just a few minutes. Next, I'm going to take some of these Dollar Tree skewer sticks. They are absolutely huge. You could use whatever Dollar Tree dowel rods, skewer sticks. You could even use a few Jenga blocks for this, or even outline the entire inside with the Jenga blocks as well. All I'm going to do is make the skewer sticks the exact same size as the sides to our casket. So I just hold it up to the side of the casket and then cut it with my shears. And you are going to want to make one of these for each one of the sides to your casket. So that means you will need 6 skewer stick pieces total. Once you have the sides and the dowel rod pieces cut, you can start assembling your casket, and it really is super, super easy and simple. All I did was add some wood glue and hot glue down to the bottom side of our side, and then I place it right up against the side of the casket sign from Dollar Tree. Once I have that side on, for some extra security, I take some hot glue and I make a nice bead going all the way down in that crease on the side, and I add that skewer stick right down in that glue so that it adheres to the side of the sign as well as the bottom of the sign, and now it is all nice and secure. Then I just move on to doing the top smaller side piece by again adding that wood glue and hot glue, gluing it to the side of our casket sign, and then placing some wood glue down that crease and adding our dowel rod to keep it nice and secure. Once you have those 2 side pieces done, you can move on to the other sides. I found it easier to do the 2 side pieces and then the top and the bottom, just because it all fits really well that way. And again, I add that wood glue, hot glue, glue it to the side, and add our dowel rod. Again, it is super repetitive. You're just going to keep placing these side pieces on until you have both of those side pieces, and then you can move on to the top and the bottom. For the top and the bottom, you're going to pretty much do the exact same thing, except for with these, you're going to add the glue on the sides and as well on the bottom, so it completely adheres to the casket. And now that the top is on, you can add your glue and then place the dowel rod down inside as well. And now we can move on to the bottom, and here's what I mean by how the piece is the same size as the top and how it hangs over on the sides a little bit. Once I add the glue and glue it down, those extra little bit on the sides will definitely help keep this casket standing straight up. And let me just tell you, this casket is not wobbly whatsoever. It is super sturdy and it just came out so perfect. Now that the casket sides are glued on, I'm going to use the Dollar Tree spackling, fill in the hole from where the twine was on the original casket sign from Dollar Tree. Then I use my black chalk paint and I go ahead and paint the entire casket black. I used my black folk art chalk paint for this, and I only had to give this entire casket 2 coats and it completely covered that sign. To give the casket a little bit more detail, I use that same gunmetal folk art metallic paint, and I just place it going along those dowel rod skewer stick wood pieces inside the casket, and then I also place it just lightly going around the top outside of the casket as well. Next, I use my Cricut to cut out this design that I found in Cricut Design Space. It is this really cute home suite haunted home saying. It also had a little bat on top of it, but I had to cut that off so that I could place the bat on there individually, pretty much so that I can place it where I want it to go instead of it being up so high, and then it would not have fit on our casket. So again, I transfer on that home suite haunted home and the bat, and I just think that turned out so cute. Setting our casket to the side for just a moment, you will need a smaller Dollar Tree pumpkin, or really any pumpkin that you have as long as it will fit down at the bottom of your casket. And I just used my black chalk paint and painted the entire pumpkin black. Okay, now listen, this is how you know I absolutely love you guys, because I am about to work with glitter. I hate working with glitter. Even though this pumpkin turns out absolutely gorgeous, I hate working with glitter. But I had a vision in my head and I wanted to bring it to life for you guys, so here it is. I placed a nice bit of Mod Podge down in the indentation of the top of the pumpkin, and then I use my mini chip brush and just start dragging that Mod Podge down over on the side so that it gives us this really streaky, kind of creepy look. I take some of the silver glitter from Dollar Tree and I just start shaking it all over the top of that Mod Podge, and it will stick right to it, shake off the excess, and look how gorgeous. I did also use my black chalk paint to paint the stem of the pumpkin black as well. I did have to kind of speed things up a little bit because this video was getting so long, so I do apologize if things seem a little bit faster than normal. I will be back to my regular speed next video. I hot glued the glitter pumpkin down at the bottom of the casket. Then I'm going to use one of these Dollar Tree skeletons, and I don't really care for the color. It's just really dingy and not so real looking, I guess, and it's just super plasticky. So I take my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White, and I do a heavy dry brushing. I don't cover it completely. I do let a little bit of that color show, and then I do cut off the hanger at the top on his head and finish painting him white. However, again, I did not want him to be completely white, so I take some black chalk paint and I start dry brushing it along the skeleton, just giving him a little bit more detail and making him look a little bit more realistic. Before I add my skeleton inside the casket, I need to fix his super wobbly head. The heads on these skeletons are crazy wobbly, and I want it to be looking sideways out towards us. So I just add a little bit of hot glue and hold it in place until it is nice and sturdy. To add the skeleton to the casket, I just lean it up against the side and glue that back leg back behind the pumpkin and also to the bottom of the casket. I take the skeleton's other leg and I just place it up so that it looks like it is propped up on top of the pumpkin and kind of stepping up on it. And I don't want to glue it down just yet. I'm going to take some Dollar Tree florals. You could, of course, use whatever florals you would like. I love this pumpkin floral. That beautiful silver matches our pumpkin that we made so well. I bent the stem of the floral in half and I place it right beside the pumpkin, kind of between the skeleton's legs. I do not glue it down just because I was scared of the gluing commitment, so I did not glue anything down just yet. Now I finally do go ahead and glue down the skeleton, gluing his back to the side of the casket and also his foot to the top of the pumpkin. And then you can go ahead and add your pumpkin's stem back on as well. I wanted these spooky little branch picks with these sparkly balls off of this skeleton pick from Dollar Tree, so I just picked it off and placed it down where I would like it. At this point, I did want to add a little bit more height to the flowers, so I just take another one of those same exact floral picks and I stand it straight up in the back, kind of tucking it back behind that skeleton's leg so it does not move or go anywhere. And then I take the floral pick that we bent in half and I put it back where it previously was. So now we have these really, really pretty flowers. But to make them just a little bit more spooky, I found these floral picks at Dollar Tree that had these little tiny black, like sparkly skulls. So I hot glue one of those in the center of each one of those red flowers. For our skeleton's lantern, Dollar Tree has many different styles. They also have these wood ones that I thought would work really well, and they have other Halloween ones also, but I used this Dollar Tree lantern that I have had for quite some time, and I just took some white chalk paint and I distressed it a little bit. Now I take one of these wood cubes from Dollar Tree, I paint it black with my black chalk paint, and this is what we are going to glue to the side of our lantern so that when we glue it to the casket, it is going to be straight and not like crooked. So basically this is making up for that gap between the casket and the lantern. I do recommend gluing the lantern onto the casket with a really strong hot glue or even E6000 or wood glue. And then I take the arm of the skeleton and make it look like it is holding up our lantern so that it is guiding the way with the light. At this point, you can call it done and this DIY could be done. But of course, again, you guys know me and I always have to go extra. So I kind of thought that it looked a little bit bare up at the top of the casket. So I use another one of these Dollar Tree pumpkin picks and I cut it down. And then I just take a little piece of foam from Dollar Tree. It was one of those round foam discs and I just cut it down to a tiny little piece and I paint it black to blend in with our casket. And I glue it up here at the top of the casket, but more towards the right hand corner. Then I just take those pieces from the pumpkin pick from Dollar Tree that I had cut apart and I just start pushing them into that styrofoam piece. And I do kind of make it look like it is going around that top right corner and cascading down the side just a little bit. Now that my florals are all in place, I take one more of those little glittery black skulls off that floral pick from Dollar Tree and I glue it right in the center of that red flower like I did with the red flowers on the bottom of the casket. And oh my goodness, look at how absolutely stunning this DIY turned out. I just love the fact that it is spooky but gorgeous at the same time. I am so obsessed with this DIY. Okay, friends, I have got to know what you guys think of this casket DIY down in the comments. I mean, look at this thing at night with the lights on. Oh my goodness, how absolutely beautiful. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know down in the comments what your all-time favorite Halloween costume that you have ever worn is. I feel like this comment section could be pretty darn funny. So I cannot wait to read them. You guys, I had so much fun with you all today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please, if you did, don't forget to like, maybe hit that hype button. All those things really help out my channel. I appreciate every single one of you, and I truly hope to see you all and a few new friends on the next one. Bye.